Want to start making character controller 3D games with Godot? In the next 20 minutes, you'll set up your first project, explore the Godot interface, build a player scene, and create a simple 3D environment with collision detection. In the full course, we'll go further by building a complete third-person character controller with movement, camera controls, jumping, and polished gameplay mechanics. You'll find the link in the description. Let's get started. In this lesson, we're going to download Godot and set up a new project. There's a number of places that you can get Godot from, including Steam and Google Play. We are, however, going to be downloading it from the official website at godotengine.org. Let's point a browser to godotengine.org and click on the big Download Latest button, which will give you the current stable release. I'll do my best to avoid any deprecated features or obscure version-specific hacks, but you may still run into compatibility issues down the road. Extract the resulting zip file somewhere on your computer and double-click the executable to launch Godot. That's all there is to it. Let's create a new project. Select a name for it and a folder to put it in. Make sure the Create Folder switch is toggled on so that we make sure that we've got a brand new empty folder for it. You can leave the renderer as /, unless you don't have a Vulkan-compatible graphics card. If that's the case, use compatibility. We won't be dealing with the mobile renderer for this course. You can also change this later if you decide you really want to use a different one, so don't stress if you pick one that you don't like or otherwise isn't very compatible with your PC. Godot helpfully lists the major features of each renderer to the right of the list so you can evaluate your choice more thoroughly. Or you can click the More Information link to be taken to the Godot documentation. Godot's documentation is extremely thorough, so you should take some time, at some point, to read through as much of it as possible and get in the habit of consulting it whenever you get stuck. We want to edit our project now, so leave the Edit Now box checked and press Create. Well, what's all that stuff? The Godot editor can be intimidating, but once you get used to it, it's really easy to manage. We're going to take a look at the most important parts of the Godot interface. The first thing you should know is that nearly all of the windows and tabs are draggable, which means that ultimately you can customize the interface however you like. If you ever manage to scramble it to the point of no return, or you just decide you prefer the original and forget how you changed it, simply select Editor, Editor Layout, Default, and you'll reset Godot back to the way it was when you first started. In the lower left-hand corner of the screen, we have the File System. This is a view of the folder where your project, and all the files it contains, are stored. Godot also refers to this folder as the Resource Directory. You're not able to browse outside of the project's root folder in this window. It's not a full-fledged file browser like you might find in Windows or Linux. Above the File System is the Scene Tree. This window contains all the information about the scene that you're currently viewing and or working with. A Godot game is made up of a collection of scenes, which are in turn made up of nodes. We'll explore the relationship between those in the next lesson. On the right-hand side is the Inspector. This window will show you all the properties of any selected node and allow you to edit them. The other two tabs in this view allow you to manage the node's groups and signal connections, respectively. We won't be working with groups in this course, but we will definitely hook up a signal or two when the time comes. The lower half of the middle of the screen is taken up by a grab bag of tabs that includes all sorts of things, like the output console, various toolbars and editor windows, and Godot's debugger. We'll be diving into those later in the course as well. Finally, the center window is both where you'll be writing your code and doing a lot of other manipulations of your scenes. Let's look at some of the most commonly used controls to help you navigate its 3D space. We won't be using the 2D tab in this course as it's reserved solely for 2D games and creating user interfaces, neither of which we'll be doing. First, we have the View Configuration button, not to be confused with the View button on the toolbar. This button switches between perspective and orthogonal view, as well as toggles various viewport positions to help you look at your scenes better. We'll look at those more closely in a moment. The aforementioned View button allows you to toggle the number of subviews your main window is broken into. This allows you to, for example, view your scene from both the top and side views, which is handy when you're fine-tuning object placement. To adjust the viewport camera relative to its position in the space, hold down the right mouse button and move your mouse. You can also utilize standard WASD movement controls while the right mouse button is held down, same as you would in your typical first-person shooter. W moves the camera forward, S moves it back, A and D slide it left and right, respectively, and Q and E moves it down and up. To zoom in or out, either hold Control and the middle mouse button, then move the mouse, or simply use the scroll wheel. And speaking of the middle mouse button, holding it down and moving the mouse will pivot the view around the selected object's origin. To quickly switch to a particular view plane, we'll explain that a bit more when you go over 3D space in a future lesson, you can click on the relevant axis in the gizmo in the upper right. For example, clicking on the Z will align the camera such that it's looking straight down the Z axis with no perspective correction. This is invaluable for things like placing objects on a surface, such as a table or floor. While you're in this view, holding down the right mouse button and moving the mouse around will scroll the view without otherwise altering the viewing angle. Next, let's learn about scenes, nodes, and grayboxing. We're finally going to start putting things on screen. As I mentioned previously, a Godot game is made up of scenes, which are made up of nodes. A node is a compact, singular thing that does something within the engine. It might be an empty placeholder object, a point in 3D space, or even a timer or instance of a 3D model. Godot comes with hundreds of nodes already defined, and if that's not enough for you, you could even make your own. We're going to do exactly that, but we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to make use of a pre-existing node type called the character body 3D. This is a special kind of node that not only exists in 3D space, but is also attached to the Godot physics engine, letting us move it around and have it collide and interact with other objects. Unlike other types of physics objects, though, it doesn't move unless we write code to move it. Sounds like the perfect base for our character controller. On the left-hand side of the screen, you should see a menu in the scene tree that prompts you to create a root node, and offers 4 choices. The root node, as its name implies, is the base node of the scene. Our scene is going to be our character, so let's select Other Node, and then, using the search bar to help you find it, select Character Body 3D. Press the Create button to add it to your scene. If, for whatever reason, you don't have the Create Root Node menu in your scene tree, you can also create a new scene by selecting Scene, New Scene from the menu, or pressing Ctrl-N. Okay, now we've got a Character Body 3D, but we can't actually see it. We need to add some kind of graphical resource to our scene. Since we don't have any 3D assets yet, we're going to do what's called grayboxing, which is to put in some placeholder graphics until we get to the good stuff. Your Character Body 3D node should already be selected in the scene tree, but if it's not, click on it once to select it. Actually, let's rename it. Either click on it again, or right-click on it and select Rename. You can also press F2. Type in a name you like, I called mine Character, and hit Enter. Next, either right-click the character node and select Add Child Node, or press Ctrl-A, then select the Mesh Instance 3D node from the list and press Create to add it to your scene. As you may have guessed, the Mesh Instance 3D node displays a 3D mesh. Since we don't have any, we're going to use one of Godot's built-in primitives. Before we do though, either press Ctrl-S or select Save Scene from the scene menu. Keep the name Godot provides. It'll be the name of the node, or call it whatever you like, as long as you don't delete the file extension. It's always a good idea to save your work frequently. Click on the Mesh Instance 3D node to select it, then expand the Mesh property in the inspector on the right-hand side of the screen. Select Capsule Mesh. Our new mesh is centered on the origin of our scene, but we're going to align it so that the character's feet are actually at the origin. Click on the picture of the capsule in the inspector to expand its properties. The second one is height, and it should have defaulted to 2 meters. Let's collapse the properties by clicking on the capsule's picture again. Next, we'll expand the Transform property under the Node 3D section. The first one is the Transform, which defines the position of the node in 3D space. We want to move our Mesh Instance 3D up by half of its height, so click in the box for the Y coordinate and change it to 1. You can see the position change a bit easier if you click on the Z coordinate in the gizmo, which will switch to the Z-axis view and allow you to verify that the capsule is now positioned 1 meter up relative to the origin of the scene. You're probably eager to run your game and see your capsule in all its glory, but if you did, you actually wouldn't see anything because all 3D games need at least one camera in order for Godot to render anything. Let's add a 3D camera node to our character the same way we added the mesh. As you can see in the inspector, our camera can't see anything because it's positioned at the origin, inside of the mesh. Let's expand its Transform property as well and move it to Y1, Z2. As a quick aside, now would be a good time to note that, when positioning objects in 3D space, positive Z-coordinates are towards you and negative Z-coordinates are away from you. Negative X is to the left, while positive is to the right. And as we've already seen, negative Y is down and positive Y is up. Now, you can technically run your game by either using the Run Game button or pressing F5. Godot should prompt you to select a scene as your main scene, so go ahead and select Current. And there you go. One character that you can see, but doesn't actually do anything. We'll fix that shortly, but first, let's give him, or her if you prefer, something to run around in. We're going to use what we've learned previously to make a very basic arena for our player to run around in. Create a new scene and use Node 3D as the root. You can save yourself a few clicks by simply selecting 3D Scene instead of other node. Add another Mesh Instance 3D to it as a child, and this time we're going to select a box mesh instead of a capsule. Rename the root node to Playfield and the mesh instance to Floor. Save your scene at some point, just so we don't lose it if aliens attack. Then expand the box mesh's properties and change its size to X20, Z20. Now we need some walls, so we're going to create 4 more Mesh Instance 3D nodes, give them box mesh meshes, and rename them to North Wall, South Wall, East Wall, and West Wall, respectively. It's okay if you create one wall and duplicate it via right-clicking or pressing Ctrl D, but do not simply duplicate the floor. If you do this, the floor's mesh resource will actually be shared across the duplicates, and any changes you make to the wall's dimensions will also affect the floor. Sometimes this is what you want, but right now it's not. So let's create a singular wall and change its size in the X direction to 20, and in the Y direction to 3. This should give us a wall that the character can't jump over. We'll need to raise and reposition our wall, so open its translation property and change the Y position to 2 and the Z position to -10.5. Rename the node to North Wall, then press Ctrl D to duplicate it. Rename it to South Wall, then change the Z position to 10.5. Now we're going to get clever and save ourselves some work. You can modify multiple nodes at once, as long as they share properties. So click once on the North Wall, and Control-click on the South Wall so that they're both selected. Press Ctrl D to duplicate the nodes. Then, without deselecting them, expand their transform and change their Y rotation to 90. Select the East Wall by clicking on it so that it's the only one selected, and change its translation to X 10.5 Z0. Do likewise for the West Wall, except change its X translation to -10.5 instead. Your playfield should now resemble the one on screen. Finally, let's get some lighting in here. Click on the 3 dots to the left of the Transform View buttons on the menu bar at the top of the central window. You'll see the current settings for the sun and environment as they appear in the editor, but these don't carry over to your scene in-game. We can fix that by pressing the Add Sun to Scene button. We won't worry about the environment for now, but you can edit if you want. We're just about ready to start writing some code, but first we'll need to set up collision. We need to add some collision shapes to our character, as well as the playfield, in order for everything to work correctly. If you still have your character scene open, switch to it by left-clicking the tab just above the main window. If you don't have it open, locate the file name you saved it under in the File System window and either double-click it to open it, or right-click it and select Open Scene. You may be wondering why there's a little yellow warning icon next to your Character Body 3D node. If you mouse over it, you'll see a message about how the Character Body 3D lacks a shape and it can't collide with other nodes. Time to fix that. Add another child node to the root. This one will be a Collision Shape 3D. Expand the Shape property dropdown in the inspector and select Capsule Shape 3D. As you can see by switching to Z-axis view, the collision shape is centered at the origin, much like our mesh instance originally was. Expand the Transform property and change the Y value to 1 so that it lines up with the mesh. Next, we should set the collision layer. Godot allows you to organize various things into groups and layers, and collision is one of them. By doing this, we can indicate which things can collide with other things. Select your root character node and expand the collision property. There are 2 groups of boxes here, layer and mask. The collision layer is the layer that the object belongs to. Click on the group of 3 dots to the right of the layer boxes and select Edit Layer Names. Change layer 1 so that its name is World, and layer 2 so that it's called Player, then close the dialog. You can verify that the layer names have been changed by mousing over the layer in either the layer or mask groupings. Now that we've done that, we'll change the character's layer to Player by clicking on layer 1 to deselect it, and then on layer 2 to select it. An object can either belong to or mask against more than one layer at a time. The mask should already be set to World, so we can leave it alone. Next, we'll move on to the playfield. Switch to, or open, your playfield scene. Mesh Instance 3D is not a physics node like Character Body 3D, so we have to add nodes to our walls and floor. We'll use a static body 3D, which can be collided with by other bodies, but otherwise will not interact with the physics engine. They're perfect for stationary objects that can't be knocked over. Add a static body 3D node as a child of your floor. Again, we have a warning indicating that there's no shape, so we'll add a collision shape 3D and give it a box shape, same as we did with the character and its capsule shape. Set the dimensions of the box shape to match that of the floor. X is 20, Z is 20. Once that's done, expand the collision property of the static body 3D and set the layer to world and the mask to player. We can do the walls in a similar fashion. We'll add a static body 3D to the north wall and give it a collision shape 3D with a box shape, then change the size of the box shape to that of the mesh. You can check the values in the inspector if you like, but if you're lazy, their X is 20, Y is 3. Note that since the static body is a child of the mesh instance, its position is actually relative to the position of its parent. If you don't change the static body's transform values, they'll be the same. Set the wall's collision layer to world and mask to player, same as you did for the floor. Since all four walls have the same collision shape data, we can duplicate the static body nodes with Ctrl D and reparent them to the other walls by dragging them into position in the scene tree. Once you do that, though, you'll need to reset their transforms. Expand the transform property and press the circular arrow button. When you do the east and west walls, reset the rotation as well. Okay. Congratulations on completing this free Godot 3D tutorial. If you'd like to continue, our full Godot 3D character controller course walks you through building a professional third-person character controller from scratch, including movement, character systems, jumping, sprinting, interaction mechanics, animation, integration, and clean game architecture. By the end of the course, you'll have a complete, reusable 3D character controller that you can use as the foundation for your own games and future Godot projects. You'll find the full course linked in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you inside the course.